Hello everyone, this is Debbie Henderson from Debbie's Designs. I have an exciting video for you today. I am introducing you to the Stampin' Blends. These are the new alcohol markers from Stampin' Up, and look at all the colors that these come in. I'm assuming this will be the beginning, and they'll be introducing more colors as we go along. We as demonstrators were able to order them with a kit that included a stamp set and a card kit, and I'm going to be showing that to you. But first, let's continue on with the little brochure that comes with the Stampin' Blends. As you notice, it has the Color Me Happy down here. And as you open it up, it has all the colors. It even gives you the step-by-step directions for using the blends. And here is a photo of the kit that I'm going to be showing you a little bit more closely. You'll notice that there's 4 different card designs, so you get to use most of your stamping blends. And then here are the colors and the catalog numbers, so you'll be getting those. It'll be available to customers pretty soon. I don't have a date yet. Now let me move all of these aside just so I can show you the kit. I do have a little holder that I use that I bought on Amazon, and I'll show you that later. Now the kit that you can purchase comes with the instructions on the inside, and then if you flip over to the back, there's some close-up photos there of each card. The stamp set, Color Me Happy. You can see what that looks like. It's got 2 birds and a flower. It gives you a little sampling of trying out the coloring techniques with these markers. Now I've already created 1 of each card, so what I'm going to show you is what's left for 3, so that you can make 4 of each card. This is the pink one, and then this is the design on it's like a pool party Bermuda Bay kind of color. And then this one, and the 4th one is a Night of Navy. And the envelopes are pretty neat. There's 4 envelopes, of course. There's 1. And some of these, if you flip over, they got the gold tip on the flaps. It's really pretty. You got 4 of these. Same thing with the gold. And the last one is the pink one. And again, with the gold on the flap. We have gold decals. This is one of the cards. It's already pre-stamped for you because you pop this on top of the stamped images. And then we've got all of the cardstock layers, the banner layers. One of these is for sentiment on one of the cards. I'm going to show you the cards close up too. This is like a, I don't know what you would call an animal print banner. And lastly, a little bit of bling. We have some tassels. This is some gold sticky tape, baker's twine, and then we have some sequins. And let me show you what all 4 cards look like, and then we'll use the markers a little bit. This is one of the cards. This is the one with the pre-printed element here, and as you can see, that one I pop dotted. I used a stamping dimensional. This one has the birds on it with the gold foil. This one has a strip of the gold foil, and these are the flowers. Look how pretty they are, all shaded. This is the thank you card with the banner, and I also use stamping dimensionals on that one. And I have a few more cards to show you that are not part of the kit, just to show you how I shaded. So let me get you started on each of these cards to show you how to use the blends. Now the colors we're going to be using on the cards is Pumpkin Pie, Pink Pirouette, and Pool Party. As you can see, these colors come in 2 shades, a light and a dark. And then we have the color lifter, and I'm going to show you how to use that. Now, just a couple tips as we start. I'm going to give you some tips as we go along here. The only ink you should be using is Memento Black to do your stamping. This is made for alcohol-based markers so that they won't smear. Another tip, these markers, the covers are very tight so that the alcohol doesn't dry up on you. When you pull, you're going to have to pull hard. And as you look at the inside, you can see that there's a round barrel on the inside. Make sure when you're putting these back on that you go nice and straight so that you don't ruin the tip of your marker. Nice and straight, and listen to the click. Make sure you hear that when you put it back on. If you don't hear the click, that means it's not on securely. When storing these markers, they should always be stored flat. And that's true with our Stampin' Right markers also. You don't want to stand them up because the ink or the alcohol ink will travel downwards, and you don't want that to happen. You want to keep them nice and flat so that it stays even on the inside of the barrel. I also like the square shape of these. They don't roll. When you put them down, they'll just stay in place so you won't keep, like me, I drop stuff on the floor all the time. So I love that these will stay on my work surface. Another thing that you will notice on each end, and this is true of our Stampin' Right markers, some of you might not know this, there's a thick line and a thin line, thick line and a thin line. That means that the brush side of the marker, the thicker side, is where you have the thicker line. The fine tip is on the end with the fine line. So that's a good way when you have it in front of you. If you just look at the line, you'll know which side you need to use. Now, as we get ready to stamp, make sure when you start your coloring with your alcohol markers that you protect your work surface with something, because they do bleed through. So if you have a nice piece of designer paper or something underneath, you're going to ruin it. Now I have glass over my area. That's why I'm using a piece of scrap paper. Now I'm not going to assemble each card for you, but I'm going to show you how to do the stamping and the coloring. This is the first card. You notice that there's sequins in the background and the gold metallic strip. Now for this one, you need this card base, the triangular cardstock piece. There is a flat end right here that needs to go to the top. So you're going to flip it over this way. And then you have the small banner. So on this one, all we need to do is stamp the flowers. And again, you're going to be using Memento ink. And make sure you go off the edge of your paper. That's what kind of makes this card look neat. And you can twirl the flowers around so they're not all facing in the same direction. Let's do one more. And if you look at this one, they're not the same, which is okay. Now I'm going to bring in the pink pirouette. Again, you have the light and the dark. And I'm going to tell you something. There is no right or wrong way of coloring with these. It's going to be what you're most comfortable with. So don't let anybody tell you to start with the lightest or the darkest. You are going to figure that out on your own. I myself start with the dark. So here I'm going to go around the center of the flower. I'm just going to do a couple here to show you what I'm going to do. Now, when I look at my petals, see where these two meet? I'm going to add a little bit more dark color there because there should be a shadow there. So anywhere that you have two petals that are meeting, again, click them shut. And now I'm going to go over the dark that I just colored because I want to blend that darker area. So I'm actually going over the whole thing. And then I go over the middle again. See, I go over this a couple times. And don't do too many in advance. You want to work with this while it's nice and fresh. But see how I'm getting the lighter and the darker of the pink? So now I'm going to go to the second flower and do the same thing. And again, I'm going to go in and add another layer of dark and another layer of light. And all I'm doing is blending these in together. Now, I would use the fine tip to do where the petals are folded over. You might want to leave these white, or you might want to make them darker. Now, the color lifter, see right here, I went over the line a little bit. This is where the color lifter comes in. You just color that and you let it dry. You can also use the color lifter if you feel that you've added too much color. Let's just pick a petal like this one here. If you color that in, it'll lighten up. As it dries, it gets lighter. So you can also use this as a blending tool. If I feel that right here where my pink ended is too harsh of a line, I'm just going to tap that, and it's actually going to blend that in. You can't tell too much right now because it's still wet, but as it dries, it just takes off that harsh line. So all you would need to do on this card is glue this in place, add the gold foil, stamp your sentiment, and I did use stamping dimensionals under my sentiment, and then I used glue dots for my sequins because they're the perfect size. All I do is take one of the sequins, press it in place, and it's good to be glued. Now let's move on to card number 2. Something that I meant to show you also, just to show you the difference between the regular Stampin' Write markers and the alcohol markers. If I was to color with a marker, see all the lines that you get? It's not nice and smooth. You can see all the lines where they butt up against each other. When you're using the alcohol markers, you don't get that. See how they blend? There's no lines with alcohol markers, which is perfect. My next card is going to be the one with the birds on it. You need the pink card base, one of the little gold seals, and these are not self-adhesive. You do have to use glue. I actually tried to peel the back of that and it didn't work. This size of the Whisper White to stamp on, the little one for the sentiment, and then twine and sequins on this one. So we're going to stamp the birds. Again, using the Memento ink. So now we're going to bring in the pink pirouette. And again, I am starting with the lighter color. I'm actually going to color the whole thing on this one, except for the beak. See how nice? No lines. Then I'm bringing the darker one, and what I'm going to do is add shading where the feathers meet, and in this case, underneath. And then I'm going to add some under right here where his belly meets, and then a little bit on top of his head. So he looks kind of weird right now, but that's where the shading comes in. And I'm just going over the darker, going down and blending it. You see how that covers the harsh lines? Now, if you wanted to add a little bit of white on the belly, that's where the color lifter comes in. So I'm just going to color right here, and you'll see that that'll lighten up by the time we're done with the other bird. Okay, now we're going to bring in Pool Party. And again, I'm starting with the lighter color. I'm coloring the whole bird. These smell good too, by the way. Now the darker shade under the feathers. And again, I'm going to do the bottom of his belly and the top of his head. And then comes in the shading. See how easy that is? You'll get the hang of it after you practice for a little bit. Now we're going to add a little bit more white in the belly area. And I'm going to bring in the pumpkin pie to do their beaks. That's what's nice about it, having the fine tip. A little bit on the feet. So you can see how easy that was, and look at the beautiful shading you get from it. So for card number 2, all you would do on this one is glue this right here. The gold foil or gold seal goes right there. And then you wrap the twine around at the top. Add the sentiment and a couple sequins. And that one is good to go also. For card number 3, which is the thank you card, just 3 pieces on this one, the card base, the banner, and the gold edged sentiment layer. And now we're going to stamp the thank you with Memento ink. Now, I did my thank you a little different than the card, the kit, I mean. You can see that the letters are dark. I didn't want to add dark to my lettering. I prefer adding the 2 shades of marker. So you can see how mine looks a little different. Where you see these lines underneath, those are where they use the Night of Navy marker. I'm using both of the Pool Party. And again, use the end that you are comfortable with. Some of these areas are a little small, but I felt that the brush tip worked well here. So I'm just coloring what would be the front of the lettering, and I'm going to use the darker shade for the outlining. This one is actually pretty easy. Okay, now here's a good example of where you would use the color lifter. I went over just a little bit right here. And that'll take that away completely. And this is so relaxing. With the coloring craze, I'm sure most of you have coloring books, the adult coloring books. I love them. I usually bring them with me when we travel. I'm going to bring in the pumpkin pie to do the little, I don't know what you would call these. Now, once I had this colored, you'll notice that I added more shading. So I just kind of went where you have any little curved lines. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. But I just wanted to add more color. I'm just going to blend. And then I did use the color lifter just on the larger areas, just one swipe. And that's it for that one. Pretty simple. So you would just fold this in half, glue down your banner, and then I added stamping dimensionals to raise this one. So that's card number 3. Now before I show you card number 4, I also wanted to mention that alcohol markers can be used on non-porous items like these pearls. Okay, I'm just going to color 3 of them. Look how nice those turned out. And then if you put your finger on them, it doesn't rub off. That's already set, and you can color them any color you want using your blendability or your blends. I'm so used to calling these blendabilities from a couple years ago when we had some. Now the 4th card is the blue with the longer piece of cardstock, the sentiment layer, 1 tassel, and then you're going to need these. And I prefer to color this before I pop it out so it doesn't move around on me. So that's just a little tip. So let's go ahead and stamp. Now this one is the one that's a little bit more complicated for to me as far as coloring. Even though the images are small, I did use the color lifter on these, and I'll show you how I did that. Now I'm going to use the string image. Add one there. Now one tip, because I messed up on my first card. These have little fringes on the bottom. See, this one here I did upside down, which you can't really tell. But make sure that the fringes are on the bottom. We're going to do 2 of these, and then we're going to add a second string. I'm going to add this one in the middle, and then add the round one on each side. Okay, now we're ready to color. So again, we're using Pumpkin Pie and Pool Party. I'm going to start with the lighter. I didn't look at my line, so I didn't know which end I had. Now because I only have 2, I'm going to go ahead and do both of them. Add just a little bit of dark on the end. And then I'm coming back in and blending. And then I'm going to use the color lifter right in the center, just to give it some highlights. And you'll see that lighten up as we go. Now this one, like I said, I do it on the sheet because if you take this out, it's quite small and it might move around on you. It's a lot easier to just do it while it's still intact. And we just need 1. Now I did do a little bit on the top and bottom. And again, I'm going to start on the end and work my way in. And then the color lifter in the center. And see how the color lifter is working on the Pool Party? It really looks good. So this one is all ready. Now we have 3 of these. I'm going to do one at a time only because I don't want it to dry out too much. It's easier to blend if it's wet a little bit. So if you do too many in advance, they're going to dry. And the color lifter. Just 2 more to go. And then I'll show you a couple projects that I did with other stamp sets that came out really good. Now, another thing about the color lifter, you'll see that right here you can see a little bit of lines. By adding the color lifter, it not only serves to lighten, but it blends. See how those lines have disappeared already? So it kind of blends your lines when they're showing too much. Okay, last one. Okay, now I went over the line right here, so I'm going to clean that up. I'm trying to hurry so you don't have to sit there and keep watching me. And the last thing is the color lifter. Okay, those are all done. So now all you would need to do is fold your card in half. You would need to lay down a strip of the gold and then put this over it. And I did glue this flat, but you could add stamping dimensionals. But before you glue this down, all I did was thread my little tassel. I added adhesive on the back on each side, and then I just wrapped this around and pressed it in place into the glue. And then that just goes there. And then you would add a stamping dimensional to the back of this and put it right over this one. And then your sentiment goes right here. So that's it for the cards. I know that was quick, but it was just mostly to show you how I do my coloring. And as I stated, it'll be up to you whether you want to start with the darkest first or the lightest. Okay, now I'm going to show you a couple projects I made because we do have a lot of stamp sets that you can use. One of my favorites is Remarkable You. Look at these beautiful flower images that are wonderful to color with. So the next card I'm going to show you is one that I did using those images. And I used the Rich Razzleberry and the Old Olive. And I've gone ahead and stamped another one. Let me get my scrap. This time I'm going to use Calypso Coral for the flower. And if you'll notice, I did leave some white on the tips. So again, I'm going to color with the lighter shade first. And I'm just kind of going up like this so that it leaves some uneven white tips. These flowers are wonderful to color with. This would be a great set if you're a demonstrator to do with your customers. Okay, and this is the darker. I'm just going to add a little bit on the tips. So this one is pretty much just doing brush strokes. Okay, now I'm going to bring the lighter one in again and blend. See how quick this is though? I'm really not spending a lot of time on each petal. Okay, that's all there is to that one. Now I am going to bring the color lifter just to add a little bit on the tips. And what I'm doing is, again, you see those rough edges. I'm just blending those so that they're smoother. So this is just, the color lifter is not just for fixing boo-boos. They're also for shading. Okay, that's it on that one. See how quick that was? Now I'm going to bring in the Old Olive. Now this one, the leaves are a little bit different because they have some of those grid marks. So you can gauge yourself on the darker areas. I'm just going to mostly color in with the light marker first. And then I'm going to use those grid lines for my dark marker. Don't forget, you need to hear that click. See how I'm not spending a lot of time? I'm just kind of dabbing here and there. Okay, now the lighter one to do the blending. Oops, sorry about that. That was my phone. Oops, I forgot one. Okay, now I'm just going to bring in the white just to even out some of the lines. And that's it on that one. See, that was done within minutes. Look how beautiful that is. And also with a rich raspberry. This is one of the best stamp sets. If you want to practice a lot on your coloring, this is one of the best stamp sets to do it with. And lastly, I'm going to show you one more stamp set, and there's plenty out there for you to use to color. The Coffee Cafe and the Mary Cafe, because look at the large areas that you can color. And what I've done with that one, I didn't finish my card, but I did one of the cups. And I was going to redo this one because I stamped a little too hard right here on the Memento ink. But I wanted to show you that this Memento ink does not come off. See, it doesn't smudge, and it will not disappear with the color lifter. So I kept that there just to show you that. So this time I stamped just the cup and a little whipped topping. And if you'll notice, the straw is striped and black, and I added my own red line there. So let's start out by, I'm going to do a yellow cup this time. And I didn't add the sentiment like I did here, just so I could show you the shading. So again, I'm going to color the whole thing. No lines. Bring in the dark. I'm just going to add a few lines of dark. And then I'm going to do a little bit at the top and a little bit at the bottom. Now I'm bringing the lighter shade back in. I'm going to start way on the end and work my way in. See how that line disappears? Again, start on the edge, work your way in. Now you can see a little square on the inside. That's where the color lifter comes in. And you'll see that begin to disappear. Isn't that neat? Now, as far as the cream, of course, the whipped cream is usually white, so I'm just going to add a little bit of highlight on the edge and keep most of it white. And I'm probably only going to use the light one on this one. Click. And then we're going to go on the edge of the line and blend it in. See how that's starting to disappear? And I have some good news and some bad news. My tablet battery life ran out, so I wasn't able to finish. But you can see what I did by adding the color lifter. It lightened that gray, so we just have a little bit of shading around the edges. And while I was charging my battery, oh, and I forgot to tell you, the yellow I was using is Daffodil Delight, and the gray is Smoky Slate. So all we got left to do now is color in the straw, and I'm using Rich Razzleberry. Just going to make 2 straight lines. Okay, so that finishes that one. And while my battery was charging so I could finish my video, I actually finished my other cards. So on this one, I stamped the middle of the sentiment again and cut a banner, and I layered that over. And remember, I had a little black spot on my ice cube. I added a bow there to cover that up because, as I tell my customers, there's always a way to fix a boo-boo. This one you already saw, that was completed. And my third one was this one. And I just added the designer paper, Calypso Coral, and the pearl jewels that I colored with the Blends markers. So I hope you enjoyed my video for today. I'm sure I'll have more projects coming up. These again were the ones from the kit. And as soon as we find out that we can sell these to customers, I will surely let you know on my blog and on my Facebook page. Thanks for stopping by.